is Oz. This is going to be my first attempt at creating an ASMR video. The video is helmet cam footage of myself riding through Yosemite National Park with a few friends. Hopefully it will be relaxing, so just sit back on my shoulder and enjoy cruising through this beautiful scenery. My friends and I are huge outdoor nerds, and I love taking pictures. So during the transition where I stop recording and start back up, that's what we're doing. Also, my apologies if the audio isn't that great. I'm currently recording this from a cell phone. So I'll tell you a little about myself and what I do, some various thoughts on life, and a bit about the area we're riding through. Again, my name is Oz. I am a traveler, mostly by motorcycle, and have a somewhat unique lifestyle. I don't have a steady career, and usually don't stay in one place for too long. My standard mode of operation is that I will work a job for a few months, squirrel away as much money as I can, and then go wandering, traveling place to place, technically homeless, camping wherever, and getting into random adventures. When I run low on funds, I will find another job, and the cycle repeats. I have been doing this since about 2008. Why do I choose to live this way? I get bored really easily. I hate being in one place when there's just too much to see in the world. Modern society seems set up to trap people and keep them enslaved, like a cog in a machine. Everyone seems content with this lifestyle, though. It feels like being in the Matrix or that movie Idiocracy. Day-to-day life, working 40 hours a week for the sole purpose of just keeping a roof over your head and food on the table so you can work another 40 hours, numbing the fact that you're pissing away your time on this earth with electronic toys, junk food, alcohol, and popular media. Repeat this cycle until you're of retirement age, which isn't really a thing anymore, seeing 80-year-old people bagging groceries, at which point you are then allowed to enjoy life and go play. Why not enjoy life while you're still young and able? It seems the only way to do this effectively is by breaking societal conventions and being a nomadic weirdo. So here I am. But again, this is just my view of the world, and worldviews are subjective. Anyway, this ride takes place in May of 2016, last year. I'm riding a Suzuki DR650, which is basically an oversized dirt bike outfitted for luggage and legal to use on the road. I'm following my friends, Rain and Faye. We're traveling together up through California. We'd been camping in the Sierra Nevadas outside Lake Tahoe for a couple of weeks after attending a convention in Reno, Nevada called BLFC, or Biggest Little Fur Con. This is a furry convention. If you're not familiar with the concept of the furry fandom, it's basically for people who are fans of fictional animal characters with human characteristics. People create these characters, create art of them, dress up in costumes, and pretend to be their creations. Furries have conventions all over the country where they get together and party it up over the weekend. We share art, collaborate, and exchange creative energy. Many professional artists in this fandom make their sole income by selling art at these conventions. There is a huge party aspect to it as well. Entire floors of hotels are dedicated for party rooms, and there are dances and raves every night with DJs from this fandom. Anyway, that was the kickoff to our summer, after we had all been working through the winter. My Myself and Faye had been working in a call center in Phoenix, Arizona, while Rain was attending art school in Los Angeles. We were going to try to make a website documenting our travels and adventures, calling ourselves the Feral Caravan. We all have an interest in photography and love documenting the outdoors. Rain and Faye each were driving Subaru Outbacks, fully loaded with everything needed for living on the road, and myself on my motorcycle. Myself and Faye had traveled across the Southwest a few years previous. She was on a DR 650 as well. We tooled around the deserts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Beautiful country out there. There's something soul-cleansing about being the only living being for hundreds of miles in all directions. In some of these deserts, you could see the Milky Way in the sky at night because there was no light pollution anywhere on the horizon. We stayed in New Orleans for a bit and traveled north to Illinois. We explored Louisiana and Mississippi, camping in the woods. We parted ways, though, once we got to Illinois and I began work at a local factory. I had been traveling solo for a couple of years since then. I had a really great time in Colorado. Holy shit. If you ever get the chance, go get lost up in the mountains of central Colorado in one of the many national forests. The natural beauty is unparalleled. Vast granite mountainsides covered in pine trees. Snow on the side of the highway in June, 10 feet deep. Tiny mountain towns with dirt roads and wood plank sidewalks straight out of a western, minus the tourist vibe, of course. Just wandering around whatever mountain road looks appealing, you will always find beauty and interesting things, and wonderful people there. If you enjoy what you see in this video you're currently watching, imagine multiplying that by 10, and that's the mountains of Colorado. I really regret the fact I didn't have a helmet cam back then. I don't even remember the route I took through Colorado, but I think it started in Pueblo, up through Colorado Springs, and then just corkscrewing west through the mountains. I passed through Salida, Telluride, Silverton, and a ton of other places I don't remember. Riding through the $1 Million Highway, where the road is extremely narrow, and you're basically on the precipice of a vast cliff that drops down vertically about 1,000 feet. If you were to fall off, they would never find your body. I had saved a lot of money for that ride, so every other day I could basically afford to eat steak and eggs at all these nice little mountain town diners. Weed, marijuana, is legal there too, so I could enjoy a nice bowl at the end of the day without any legal worries. Sitting at 14,000 feet, taking in the sacred beauty of nature with a bit of cannabis in your system is very good for the soul. Again, if you get the chance, check out Colorado. I really love the outdoors, and I'm sure you can imagine why from this video. And this is really just driving through, just passing by. Actually wandering into the woods and engaging with nature is a whole other experience. Being alone and relying on yourself for survival is really satisfying. It gives you the confidence that will help motivate you in other aspects of life. You start to realize that life isn't really that complicated. You're just an animal, like every other little animal, just trying to get through the day. Your requirements for physical survival are simple: food, water, and a nice warm place to sleep. Once you realize, hey, I can just go sleep under a bridge tonight and life will go on in the morning, things things like worrying about bills or fulfilling obligations that aren't really meaningful to you seem much less important. I think people also get tied down with physical possessions. I understand people invest a lot of time and effort acquiring things to fill their living spaces and entertain themselves. Your furniture, your television, computer, and whatnot. But a lot of times having a lot of stuff holds you down and keeps you in one place. I'm not judging, but that just isn't for me. Without worrying about how you present yourself to other people, you can be whoever you want to be. Being alone without the static of the city allows your own personal values and desires to come into focus. When I say static, I mean when you're around people, artificial noise, vehicles, especially electronic noise, neon signs, those sort of things. It takes up a large part of your attention and just dominates your thoughts. It becomes hard to focus inward. You also lose touch with the natural way of things, how there is a balance in nature, that the type of conspicuous consumption so prevalent in modern society is completely artificial. People driving around in 7-foot-tall pickup trucks, rolling coal, shit like that, eating all of this artificial shit. It isn't natural. You are a mortal being with a limited time to enjoy life. I'm sorry if that sounds a bit preachy. I'm just trying to express how I see the world. And yeah, I know it sounds like I'm a fucking Peter Pan, but this is the way I choose to live, and I strongly encourage you to live whatever way you see fit. This is your time on Earth, and you should spend it however you want to, so long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. Be what you want to be. So, anyway, about the bike I'm riding here. It's a 2003 Suzuki DR650. In early 2013, I abandoned most of my physical possessions in Portland, Oregon, where I was living at the time. I flew to Mississippi with only a backpack full of essentials and bought this motorcycle from a man there. I traveled from there to Phoenix, Arizona to meet up with my friend Faye, who was also on a DR650 at the time. A motorcycle like this is really ideal for long-term travel. It can be outfitted with luggage boxes called panniers for extra storage space. It's a very simple machine and thus very dependable. These bikes are notoriously hard to kill. You can basically take the entire thing apart with tools you can fit in a tank bag. It's a dual sport, meaning it can be driven on the freeway and off-road, so you can go pretty much anywhere. It gets about 60 miles to the gallon, so you can get across the country without breaking the bank on gasoline. If you need to travel long distances on the cheap, a motorcycle is definitely the way to go. It kind of sucks when it rains, but you can still ride. A $20 rain suit from Home Depot or Lowe's makes it tolerable. I also carry around an all-season 2-person tent on the bike, which can withstand torrential rain, and I've even sat out a few snowstorms in it. That, combined with a sleeping bag, and I can survive comfortably pretty much anywhere. I've been riding motorcycles since about 2008 when I lived in Portland. I got my first one on a whim from a guy on Craigslist. I'd never even sat on a bike before. It was a 1991 Yamaha XT 350, a really light dual sport, incredibly nimble and easy to ride. Again, a dual sport is basically a dirt bike that you can ride on the street. I taught myself to ride with no assistance in the back alleys of St. John's in Portland. I thought, this is either going to be hilarious or tragic, but I eventually got the hang of it, working the clutch and whatnot. Since then, I was hooked on motorcycles. I upgraded to a Kawasaki Ninja ZX6 in 2011. I loved that goddamn thing. And there's a reason they call those types of bikes crotch rockets. The speed, but more specifically, the acceleration, is like nothing else on Earth. It was a really fun machine, and I'd eventually like to get another one. I basically abandoned that bike, though, when I flew out to buy the DR in Mississippi. I gave it to my roommates, and they sold it to a friend. I've never really had the money or been in a stable enough living situation to get into proper dirt biking, like riding motorcycles strictly off-road. Those types of bikes can't be ridden on the street. They're not legal, and are only good for serious off-roading, like weekends out in the woods. It's a type of riding I'd love to get into, because I love technical riding, either navigating difficult terrain or terrassing on twisty roads on a sport bike. Motocross or tearing around off-road seems like it would be incredibly fun in that regard. The DR is a bit large and unwieldy for serious off-roading, though. You can get almost anywhere on it, but it's not nearly as nimble or light as a straight dirt bike. It also doesn't really like being in the air too much, although I've gotten it off the ground a few times despite its objections. Faye, who you see in the green Subaru with the storage box on top, has been riding motorcycles since 2009, if I remember correctly. She started out on a Rebel 250 and took that thing goddamn everywhere. All around Arizona, where she was living, up through California and Death Valley, up through Oregon and Washington. She swapped it out for a DR650, which I'm currently riding, to be more mobile and have more storage space. The Rebel 250 is mostly a street-oriented bike and doesn't handle very well off-road. She was living with me in Portland, Oregon at the time. She took a bus all the way to Oklahoma to get that specific bike, which she had researched. The one she purchased had all of the mods and customizations that you could want for serious off-roading and living outdoors. Now, we had a hell of an adventure riding it back then. I believe she was on the road for a month on her way back to Portland. She loved that bike, and we had a number of good times. She took off a few months before I jumped ship on Portland, though, eventually winding back in Phoenix. Fast forward to about 2015. She was living in Portland again. She sold the bike to get this current Subaru you see here. Having a four-wheeled vehicle allowed much more storage space and the abilities to sleep in it in the city if need be, a much more versatile travel vehicle. Also much more comfortable ride on long trips. She misses riding motorcycles though, and she says she'll have another one day. Rain, who is in the blue Subaru, has been a friend of mine since about 2010, I believe. He's a professional artist and art student. Faye and I corrupted him, and now he spends a lot of his time traveling nomadically. He picked up his Subaru in Los Angeles while attending art school in early 2016. This summer was the first time he would put it to the test, and it performed beautifully. We tackled many gnarly mountain roads in our caravan, and he had a great deal of fun drifting on unpaved terrain and gravel. It was incredibly fun to watch. Every day that summer of 2016 was an adventure. We would get groceries in town, gas up, hit up a Wi-Fi spot, pirate some movies or whatever, and scout online for whatever looked like a good spot to set up camp for a few days. Then it was off into nature to take pictures, smoke a ton of pot, do art, and generally enjoy the hell out of ourselves. After Yosemite in this video, we tooled around Central California and worked our way up through Oregon, camping wherever. We hit up a number of wonderful hot springs along the way, which are incredibly invigorating and refreshing. If you have never been, I highly recommend taking a night to go soak in a natural hot spring. In June, we went to another furry gathering. This time it was up in a forest a few dozen miles from Clay Elum, Washington. Beautiful country up there, right next to this large river. Most furry conventions are held in hotels, but there are several outdoor ones across the country, which I personally prefer. Less restrictive, and of course you're out in nature rather than a hotel. So there was a lot of barbecue at that gathering. I remember brisket wrapped with bacon. One group had brought several kegs of home-brewed beer, which was delicious. They had a projector with movies and video games. Again, this is all out in the woods. Not really my thing, but still cool that they were able to set that up. They had even hauled in this flatbed trailer with a hot tub and tiki bar. There was a propane water heater fed by the river, which they also hooked up to a shower fixture. Fucking opulence in the woods. At the gathering, we had met up with a mutual friend and helped her build this massive monkey hut structure. Monkey hut is like a Quonset hut type structure built with PVC pipe and tarps. The design originated at Burning Man. We decked it out loud with all sorts of Christmas lights, disco balls, carpets, lawn chairs, and psychedelic wall tapestries. We had some nice deep dark house music going on the stereo, and we made sushi for whoever happened to wander by. It was a fucking wonderful gathering. Myself, Rain, and Faye eventually split up in the woods outside of Eugene, Oregon later in the summer. I was almost out of money, and they were going up to stay with a mutual friend in Seattle. I tooled around a bit more in Washington before going to stay with family in Idaho for a bit. I ended up having to pawn this helmet camera, which I never really got back. It had the second half of our ride through Yosemite on the memory card, which had some spectacular shots from higher elevations, waterfalls. I believe the area is called the Cathedral. The shot of Yosemite you see in all of the postcards and online photos. Anyway, in August we reunited for yet another annual outdoor gathering in Central Oregon, an event Faye actually had a hand in creating back in 2009. I don't even know how to describe this event. Kind of like a furry regional Burning Man. But all I will say, it's basically 5 days of bonding with really good friends, excessive partying, excessive consumption of alcohol and various substances, ridiculous, silly shenanigans, acting like a kid, building of structures for art jams and chill spaces, cooking of awesome food. They have a full kitchen set up there, swimming at this waterfall fed by a creek, and having basically life-affirming experiences. That, I think, was the ultimate finale to the summer of 2016. After that, Faye and Rain spent some time on the Olympic Peninsula, tooling around the rainforest and taking some amazing photos. I, of course, went back to North Idaho to find a bit more work, as, of course, I'm basically out of money. Since then, I've relocated down to Dallas, Texas to spend the winter with family. I'm about to head out again here pretty soon. Actually, tomorrow morning. I'll be headed back up to the Northwest after attending BLFC again this coming weekend. So, I hope you enjoyed the first part of this video. My little rambling here. There's still more footage I have to post that I have on my computer. I'm thinking next time I might narrate a short history of Yosemite National Park. This time I was just trying to put out something that came from my own mind, letting you get to know me a little bit and what I'm all about. I hope you can get some rest. Feel free to leave some constructive criticism in the comments if you have any. I'd love to hear your feedback. Again, this is my first attempt at anything like this. I've been a fan of ASMR since I first saw Ephemeral Rift in 2013, I believe. Big fan of his work. I have experienced ASMR my whole life, but could never really put a name to it. I didn't know there was a term for it until then. Growing up, of course, watching the man himself, Bob fucking Ross, I experienced the tingles. Blue's Clues. I actually watched in my later teens, as ridiculous as that sound, but that show gave me a strong ASMR effect. But I'm glad I have discovered this community and can finally put a name to that sensation. Some other artists I like on YouTube. Relaxing ASMR in his videos. Ali, of course, of ASMR requests. Olivia Kisper's ASMR videos. AS Matt R. Love him. Smilin' Observer. Big fan. Fred's Voice ASMR. And there's one artist I don't think is making videos anymore. I believe it's pronounced Meow, M-E-A-U-X ASMR, who primarily did creepypasta videos. I absolutely fucking love his voice, and hope he posts some new content sometime in the future. Anyone else I'm forgetting, many apologies. Okay. Until next time, this is Oz again, signing off. Have a good night.